Welcome to my channel. I hope you find this narrative enjoyable. Let's start. I closed my suitcase, making sure I had everything necessary for my business journey: phone, wallet, passport, everything was ready. I checked the time. There was still enough time to reach the airport. "Stella," I shouted. "I'm leaving now." My wife showed up in the entryway, her golden hair flowing down her back. "Have a safe journey, Santiago. Remember to call after you arrive," she said. I acknowledged with a brief kiss on her cheek. "Will do." "Take care, love." As I placed my bags in the car, I felt like I was missing something. Dismissing the thought, I drove off towards the airport. The roads were unusually clear, and I arrived swiftly. As I parked in the short-term parking, it struck me I forgot my phone charger. Damn, I was going to be away for a week. I definitely needed it. I considered for a moment. My flight was still 2 hours away. If I hurried, I could return home and still make my flight. Decided, I backed out of the parking space and rushed home. 20 minutes later, I was back in our driveway. The house was tranquil, serene. I smiled to myself, imagining Stella's surprise when I re-entered. I unlocked the door quietly, not wanting to shock her. As I entered, I heard faint voices and laughter from upstairs. Curious if Stella was watching TV, I ascended the stairs, the sounds becoming clearer. They were emanating from our bedroom. My pace slowed as I neared the slightly open door. Something was off. "Oh, Corey," Stella's voice cooed. "You're insatiable." A deep male laugh replied. "Can you blame me? Look at you." My heart sank. Corey, my gym coach, in the bedroom with my wife. I thrust the door open, the image burning into my memory. Stella, without her top, straddling Corey on our bed, both frozen, staring at me in shock. "Santiago," Stella exclaimed, sliding off Corey. I raised my hand, stopping her. "Save it." Corey sat up, reaching for his shirt. "Listen, man." I can explain. My fist met his jaw before he could continue, knocking him back onto the bed. The sound of his bone crunching barely soothing my fury. Stella screamed. "Santiago, stop." "It's not what it seems." I turned to her, my tone menacingly calm. "Not what it seems. Please do tell. What is this?" She stumbled over her words, her confidence faltering. It just happened. I scoffed bitterly. "Like you just happened to remove your top? Like he just happened to be in our bed?" Corey groaned, touching his jaw. "Look, we didn't mean shut up," I snapped, turning back to him. "You're fortunate that's all you're getting." I quickly pulled out my phone, recording the scene: Corey on the bed, Stella's state of undress, the guilt evident on their faces. "What are you doing?" Stella demanded. "Insurance," I responded icily. "Now both of you stay right there. We're not finished yet." I exited the room, slamming the door and wedging a chair under the handle. Their faint protests echoed after me as I stormed downstairs. Trembling, I dialed Stella's parents. "Mr. Fizer," her father answered. "Is everything all right?" "No, sir, it's not," I responded. "I need you and Mrs. Fizer to come over immediately. There's a problem with Stella." "What sort of problem?" he inquired, his worry apparent. "It's best you see for yourself." "Please hurry." Next, I called Jean Robinson, Corey's wife. "Jean, it's Santiago Fizer. I need you to come to my house right away. It's regarding Corey." "Is he okay?" she asked, her voice filled with concern. "Physically, yes, but you need to be here now." I ended the call, pacing the living room as I waited. From upstairs, the muffled sounds of argument drifted down. Let them argue. Let them try to find excuses. Nothing could excuse this betrayal. 20 minutes later, the doorbell rang. I opened the door to find Stella's parents and Jean all showing looks of bewilderment and worry. "Sanago, what's happening?" Stella's mother inquired as they stepped in. I inhaled deeply. "Follow me." I guided them upstairs, their inquiries dwindling as they discerned the voices from the bedroom. I removed the chair and flung the door open. "Oh my God," Jean gasped. Stella and Corey were dressed by now, but the implications were clear enough. Stella's father barged past me, his face flushed with rage. "What the hell is happening here?" he barked. Stella burst into tears. "Daddy, I can explain." What? I interjected sharply. "How I found you in bed with my coach. How you deceived our marriage." Corey stepped forward, his hands up. "Listen, everyone, this is all a big misunderstanding." Jean's voice sliced through the tension, icy and sharp. "A misunderstanding? You're in another woman's bedroom, Corey. What am I supposed to be misunderstanding?" The next hour was a chaotic mix of yelling, tears, and allegations. Faced with the evidence and the witnesses, Stella and Corey eventually confessed to their affair. The look of revulsion on her parents' faces was nearly gratifying. "How could you do this?" Stella, her mother, lamented to me to your family. Stella's father was visibly shaken, his voice quivering with fury. "You're no daughter of mine." Not after this. Jean stood quietly for a moment, then faced Corey. "I want a divorce." His expression paled. "Jan, please, we can sort this out. There's nothing to sort out," she retorted coldly. "We're finished." I faced Stella and Corey, my voice firm, despite the inner chaos. "Get out, both of you." Now Stella's eyes widened. "Sago, where am I supposed to go? That's not my concern anymore," I replied sternly. "You made your choice. Now live with it." As they collected their belongings, the gravity of the situation began to dawn on me. My marriage, my trust, shattered instantly. But watching them depart, a new resolve formed within me. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. Stella hesitated at the door, looking back at me with tears. "I'm sorry, Santiago. I never meant to hurt you." I met her gaze, my voice icy. "Save your apologies. You'll need them more than I do." As the door shut behind them, I turned to the others. "Thank you for coming. I'm sorry you had to witness this." Stella's parents embraced me, assuring me of their full support. Jean gave me a nod, a silent accord passing between us. As they left, I found myself alone in the suddenly quiet house. I collapsed onto the couch, my mind racing. The business trip was forgotten. All I could think of was how to exact revenge on Stella and Corey for their betrayal. They thought they could disgrace me. They had no idea what was coming. I pulled out my phone, cancelling my flight and hotel bookings, then dialed a new number. "Patrick, it's Santiago. I need your help planning something big." As I hung up, a grim smile spread across my face. Stella and Corey's brief affair was about to become very public, and I was going to relish every moment of their downfall. The following days were a whirlwind of fury and scheming. I dove into my work, leveraging my connections in the boxing world to orchestrate my revenge. But Stella and Corey weren't going to fade away quietly. It started with a call from my business partner, Alex. "Santiago, we've got a problem," he announced, his tone tense. "Have you seen the news?" I pulled up a news site on my computer, and there it was, splashed across the screen, private photos of Stella and me from our last vacation, intimate moments I thought were private, now laid bare for all to see. "What the hell?" I muttered, scrolling through the article. Alex continued, "It's not just the photos, Santiago, there's more." As I read further, my anger intensified. Along with the photos, key details about our upcoming business deals had been leaked, information only Stella and I knew. "Those backstabbing bastards," I growled. "What do you want to do?" Alex asked. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to think rationally. "Damage control. Call our lawyers, get them working on taking down those photos. I'll handle the business side." As soon as I ended the call, my phone vibrated with a text from an unknown number. Relishing the limelight, I thought, this is only the start. Clenching my fist, I resisted the impulse to hurl my phone away. If they intended to play dirty, I was prepared to outdo them. I devoted the next several hours to urgent calls, trying to rescue our business agreements. Most of our associates were sympathetic, yet the damage was significant. Our stock suffered, and rumors of instability started to spread. As dusk settled, I found myself gazing out the window, my thoughts racing. The leaked photos and business secrets were underhanded tactics, but I was determined not to let them defeat me. Instead, they only fueled my resolve for revenge. My phone rang, snapping me out of my reverie. It was Patrick, my trainer and now partner in plotting vengeance. "Everything's ready," he declared straightforwardly. "The next major event is in 2 weeks. Are you sure you want to proceed with this?" "Absolutely," I responded. "Send the invitations." "Ensure Stella and Corey receive theirs in person." Patrick hesitated. "Sanago, I understand you're upset, but are you sure this is the right approach?" I tightened my jaw. They embarrassed me. Patrick betrayed me, and now they're trying to ruin my business. Believe me, this is just the start of what they deserve. "All right, man, it's your decision." "I'm with you," he assured. As we ended the call, a knock at the door disrupted my thoughts. I opened it to find Jean standing there, exhausted yet resolute. "Can I come in?" she asked. I stepped back, allowing her entry. Since the incident, we hadn't talked much, each grappling with our own heartache and fury. Dawn settled on the sofa, her gaze meeting mine. I heard about the photos and the leaked information. I'm so sorry, Santiago, I shrugged, feigning indifference. It's just another low blow from them. Nothing I can't handle. She leaned in, her tone earnest. What are you planning, Santiago? I recognized that look in your eyes. I considered evading her question, downplaying her worries, but seeing the same pain and betrayal in her eyes that I felt, I confessed. I'm going to obliterate them. Publicly, completely, they wanted to expose our dirty laundry. I'd give them a spectacle they'd never forget. Jean was silent for a moment, then nodded slowly. Good. I want in her reply surprised me. Are you sure? It's not going to be pleasant. A bitter laugh escaped her. Pleasant disappeared the moment I found my husband in bed with your wife. I want them to suffer, Santiago. For both of us. I studied her, recognizing the resolve beneath her anguish, then nodded. A grim smile spread across my face. All right then, let's discuss tactics. Over the next hour, Jean and I refined my strategy, incorporating her insights for maximum effect. As she departed, I felt a renewed sense of mission. Stella and Corey thought they had triumphed with their media ploy. They had no idea what was about to unfold. The subsequent 2 weeks were a blur of activity. I immersed myself in training, pushing my limits. If all went as planned, I needed to be in peak condition. The evening before the event, I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my tie. The man reflected back was tougher, more unyielding than the one who had set out on a business trip weeks prior. That man had perished the moment he discovered his wife's infidelity. My phone vibrated with a message from Patrick. Everything's ready. You sure about this? I sent back a straightforward reply. See you tomorrow. As I climbed into bed, a slight smile crossed my face. Tomorrow, Stella and Corey would understand the real meaning of disgrace, and I would witness their downfall. The arena buzzed with anticipation as I entered through the VIP section. Tonight's boxing match was slated to be the year's highlight, but for me it was merely the prelude. Patrick greeted me at the entrance, worry apparent on his face. Last chance to back out, Sonego. I patted him on the shoulder firmly. Not a chance. Is everything ready? He nodded. Video's all set. Stella and Corey are here, 3rd row. My jaw tensed at the mention of their names. Perfect. Let's give them a night they'll never forget. As we made our way to my reserved seat, I scanned the audience. There they were, Stella and Corey, looking self-assured and at ease. Stella was clad in a dress that highlighted her figure, while Corey had his arm confidently around her shoulders. The sight ignited my anger. I settled into my seat, trying to concentrate on the match. The audience erupted as the fighters entered the ring, but I barely registered it, preoccupied with the impending revelation. The fight was intense and swift. Normally, I would have been captivated, but tonight I was eager for it to conclude. Finally, the referee lifted the winner's hand, and the crowd's applause filled the arena. I stood, making my way to the ring. The announcer's voice resonated through the speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the ring former boxing champion and tonight's event organizer, Santiago Fisher. A spotlight illuminated me as I entered the ring, the cheers intensifying. Despite Stella and Corey's efforts to mar my name, I remained a celebrated figure here. I took the microphone, my heart racing with anticipation. Thank you all for joining us tonight, I started. We've witnessed a remarkable exhibition of talent and fair play in the ring. But now, I need to discuss something more personal. The crowd quieted, sensing the change in atmosphere. I noticed Stella and Corey fidgeting in their seats. Many of you might have seen some compromising photos of me and sensitive business information in the media recently, I continued, prompting murmurs from the crowd. What you don't know is the story behind those leaks, a tale of betrayal, of unfaithfulness, of 2 individuals who thought they could disgrace me without repercussions. My gaze fixed on Stella, watching as she paled. My wife, Stella, and my former coach, Corey Robinson, thought they could destroy my reputation. They leaked those photos, those secrets, but they overlooked one crucial fact. I paused, letting the suspense grow. I'm Santiago Fisher, and I don't back down easily. With a nod to Patrick, the large screen above the ring came alive. The video started, depicting the moment I caught Stella and Corey together. The audience gasped as they watched Corey reel from my punch, and Stella's haughty demeanor was unmistakable. I observed Stella and Corey's reactions as their treachery was unveiled for everyone to see. Stella buried her face in her hands, while Corey looked as if he wished he could vanish. As the video concluded, I addressed them once more. Stella, Corey, I hope you're enjoying the show. You wanted to expose our private issues? Well, here they are. The crowd's reaction was a mix of stunned silence and murmurs of disapproval. People began turning to stare at Stella and Corey, realization dawning on their faces. But I'm not finished yet, I continued. Corey Robinson, I have a proposal for you. Corey's attention snapped to me, his expression a blend of fear and defiance. I smiled, knowing I had cornered him. I challenge you to a boxing match, Corey. A multi-million-dollar contract. Winner takes all. The crowd erupted into cheers and jeers. I watched as Corey squirmed, looking around desperately for a way out. What's wrong, Corey? I taunted. You had no trouble sneaking around behind my back. Let's see how you handle a face-to-face confrontation. The chants began quietly but soon swelled. Fight, fight, fight. Corey stood, his face flushed with anger and humiliation. You're insane, Sanago. I'm not fighting you. I chuckled, the sound reverberating through the arena. What's wrong? Scared you can't hold your own in the ring? Either the crowd's chants intensified, the atmosphere growing tense. I could see Corey's determination faltering under the scrutiny of thousands of onlookers. Finally, he snapped. Fine, you want to fight? You've got one. The arena erupted in applause as Corey advanced towards the ring. Stella tried to hold him back, clutching his arm, but he shrugged her off. I stared him down. Show me what you've got now, and then we'll talk about a rematch with the multi-million-dollar contract. I'm ready. I turned to the announcer. Make the announcement, I instructed. The announcer, still in disbelief, nodded and lifted his microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, it appears we have an impromptu match tonight. In the blue corner, former champion Santiago Fisher, and in the red corner, challenger Corey Robinson. I removed my jacket and shirt, handing them to Patrick. Corey did the same, his actions rigid with fury as we faced each other in the center of the ring. I could see apprehension in Corey's eyes. He might have been younger, but I had years of experience over him. The referee, looking uncertain about this sudden development, asked, Gentlemen, are you sure about this? I nodded, never breaking eye contact with Corey. Absolutely. Corey hesitated, then nodded as well. All right then, let's have a clean fight. Touch gloves and come out boxing. We tapped gloves, the gesture a hollow pretense of sportsmanship. As we retreated to our corners, I caught sight of Stella among the crowd. She was pale, her eyes wide with alarm. Good, this was only the beginning of her ordeal. The bell rang, and Corey came out aggressively, his movements all raw power but lacking finesse. I easily sidestepped his unrefined punches, responding with swift jabs that consistently landed. By the end of the first round, Corey was visibly exhausted, a cut forming above his eye. In contrast, I had barely exerted myself. As the match progressed, I methodically wore Corey down, each punch serving as retribution for every deception, every betrayal. The audience was ecstatic, but I was solely focused on Corey. I saw an opportunity. Corey dropped his guard momentarily, and I unleashed a devastating sequence: left hook, right cross, left uppercut. Corey collapsed, and this time he stayed down. The referee began the count, but it was clear the fight was over. As he reached 10, cheers filled the arena. I stood victorious in the ring, my arms raised, but this triumph was more than just about winning a fight. It was about reclaiming my life and my dignity. As medics tended to Corey, he muttered, You still want a rematch? I'll destroy you next time. Today was a surprise, but I'll take my revenge for today's embarrassment. I'll sign the contract. He then lost consciousness. I seized the microphone once more. Thank you all for being here tonight, I declared, my voice echoing across the crowd. Let this be a lesson. You can try to knock me down, but I'll always rise and come back stronger. Corey and I will have our rematch with the multi-million-dollar contract on the line. Stay tuned for updates. With that, I exited the ring, leaving behind a defeated Corey and a shocked Stella. As I walked out of the arena, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. This was just the start of my resurgence, and I was prepared for whatever came next. The morning after the fight, I awoke with a renewed sense of purpose, energized despite the physical toll. I had a new mission now: to prepare for the official rematch with Corey and to legally take down Stella. I called Patrick as soon as I rose. We need to start training today, I told him. Already? You just fought last night, Patrick responded, his concern clear. That was just the warm-up. I said the real battle is on its way. I need to be prepared, I told Patrick. He sighed. All right, meet me at the gym in an hour. We'll start developing a training plan after a swift breakfast. I headed to the gym. Upon entering, I noticed Patrick arranging the equipment. What's the strategy? I asked as I began wrapping my hands. Patrick faced me. First off, we need to evaluate your current condition. That unplanned fight last night might have drained you more than you think. We spent the following hour performing various exercises and drills. By the end, I was soaked in sweat but felt energized. Not bad, Patrick remarked, nodding with approval, but we have a lot of work to do if you want to be in peak shape for the rematch. Whatever it takes, I responded. This time, I'm not just battling Corey, I'm fighting for my reputation, my business, everything. Patrick's expression turned grave. Speaking of which, have you considered the legal aspects? Stella and Corey's little stunt with those photos and business secrets must have consequences. I nodded, already on it. I've got a meeting with my lawyer this afternoon. After freshening up and changing clothes, I went to my lawyer's office. Mark welcomed me with a firm handshake. Santiago, good to see you. I caught your performance last night, quite the spectacle, he remarked, gesturing for me. To sit. I sat down, leaning forward. It was necessary, but now I need your help to strike them where it really hurts. Mark nodded, pulling out a file. I've already begun building a case. The leaked photos are a clear breach of privacy laws and the business secrets. That's corporate espionage territory, good, I affirmed. I want to go after them with everything we've got, especially Stella. She had access to all that information because she was my wife. I want her to pay for betraying that trust. Mark regarded me cautiously. You sure about this, Santiago? Going after her this aggressively will be contentious. I met his gaze firmly. I'm certain. They tried to ruin me, Mark. Now it's my turn. We spent several hours discussing the lawsuit's details. By the time I left Mark's office, I felt vindicated. The wheels of justice were turning. As I drove home, my phone rang. It was Stella. I hesitated before answering. What do you want? I asked icily. Santiago, please. Stella's voice trembled. What you did last night was excessive. You're going to ruin everything we built. I laughed scornfully. We? There is no we anymore, Stella. You ended at the moment you decided to be with Corey. I made a mistake, she sobbed. Can't we just talk about this? There's nothing to discuss, I replied, except maybe in court. You'll be hearing from my lawyers soon. I hung up before she could say more, my hands clenching the steering wheel tightly. Her audacity still astonished me. Did she really believe she could negotiate her way out of this? When I arrived home, I found Jean waiting on my doorstep, her expression resolute. I heard about the lawsuit, she said as I approached. I want in. I raised an eyebrow. You sure about that? It's going to be messy. John nodded decisively. I'm sure. Corey needs to pay for what he did to both of us. I unlocked the door, gesturing for her to come inside. All right then, let's discuss our strategy. As we settled in the living room, I felt a surge of optimism. With Jean by my side, our case against Stella and Corey would be even stronger. The road ahead would be challenging, but I was ready for the confrontation. Little did I know, Stella and Corey were also gearing up for a battle of their own. But I was finished being caught off guard. Whatever they threw at me next, I'd be ready. The following weeks were a flurry of training and legal preparation. Each morning, I was at the gym with Patrick, pushing my physical limits. Each afternoon, I met with Mark to refine our legal approach. The media interest in the upcoming match and lawsuit was overwhelming. Reporters constantly approached me for comments. One morning, as I exited the gym, a particularly insistent reporter blocked my path. Mr. Fizer, can you comment on the allegations made by your wife? She asked, extending a microphone toward me. I stopped, taken aback. What allegations? The reporter's eyes sparkled, sensing a story. Miss Fizer claims you were physically abusive during your marriage. She says that's why she turned to Mr. Robinson for support. For a moment, fury overtook me. The audacity of that woman seemed limitless. I inhaled deeply, maintaining my composure. Those allegations are entirely false, I stated firmly. My lawyer will address them soon. No further comment. I moved past the reporter, my thoughts whirling. As soon as I reached my car, I phoned Mark. "Have you seen the news?" I asked as he answered. "I was just about to call you," Mark replied. "Don't worry, we're preparing a statement to refute these claims and we'll be adding a defamation claim to our lawsuit." I nodded, though he couldn't see me. Good, I want to respond strongly. She's crossed a line. After hanging up, I sat in my car, trying to process this twist. Stella was resorting to underhanded tactics, but I was ready to respond in kind. I drove to the TV studio where I knew Stella and Corey were scheduled for an interview. As I entered, I could hear their voices from the set. "We're the victims here," Stella was saying, her voice quivering with feigned distress. "Santi is a controlling, abusive man. Corey was just trying to help me get away." I walked onto the set, disrupting the interview. The host's eyes widened. "Mr. Pfizer, we weren't expecting you," she said. I smiled thinly. "I'm sure you weren't, but I think it's time we heard both sides of the story, don't you?" Stella and Corey looked panic-stricken. I sat down opposite them, maintaining eye contact. "So Stella," I began, my voice eerily calm, "why don't you tell everyone about how abusive I was? Was I abusive when I was working 60-hour weeks to build our business? Or when I planned surprise vacations for our anniversary?" Stella stuttered, caught off guard. I turned to Corey. "And you, Corey, you were just trying to help her escape, right? Is that why I found you in our bed? Were you planning her escape route between her legs?" The host tried to interject. "Mr. Pfizer, please. This is a family show." I raised my hand, silencing her. "No, I think it's time everyone heard the truth. These two aren't victims, they're liars and cheaters who got caught and are now trying to save face." I stood up, addressing the camera directly. "To anyone watching who's been cheated on, who's been betrayed by someone they trusted, you're not alone, and you don't have to let them win. Fight back, stand up for yourself, because if you don't, who will?" With that, I walked off the set, leaving a stunned silence behind. As I exited the studio, my phone vibrated with a text from Patrick. "Saw the interview. That was one hell of a counterpunch, but be careful, champ. They might hit back harder next time." I smiled to myself. Let them try. I'm just getting started. Over the next few days, public opinion began to shift. People who had initially sympathized with Stella and Corey started to doubt their story. My spontaneous TV appearance resonated with many who had faced similar situations, but Stella and Corey were not ready to concede. They continued making public appearances, spinning their tale of victimhood. It was draining, but I remained focused on my objectives. One evening, as I was perusing some legal papers, there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find Jean standing there, her expression fraught with worry. "Santiago, we need to talk," she said, moving past me into the house. I closed the door and turned to face her. "What's wrong?" Jean paced the living room, wringing her hands. "I just got a call from Corey. He threatened me, said if I didn't drop the lawsuit, he'd make sure I lost everything in the divorce." My fists tightened at my sides. What? Jean looked at me, her eyes a blend of fear and resolve. "I'm not backing down, but I'm scared, Santiago. What if he follows through?" I walked over to her, placing my hands on her shoulders. "Listen to me, Jean. We're in this together. I won't let Corey or Stella harm you. We'll fight them, and we'll win." She nodded, taking a deep breath. "You're right." I just needed to hear that, I guess. As Jean left, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about standing up for what was right, about not letting bullies and cheaters win. I picked up my phone, dialing Mark's number. "Mark, it's Santiago. I need you to add witness intimidation to our list of charges against Corey and get me a restraining order while you're at it. It's time we showed them we mean business." As I hung up, I couldn't help but smile. Stella and Corey thought they could play dirty. They had no idea what was coming their way. The day before the fight, tension was palpable, like a thick fog. I'd spent weeks preparing, pushing my body and mind to their limits. Now, it was almost time to put it all to the test. I was at the gym going through some light exercises with Patrick when my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "Watch your back, Fisher. Things might not go as planned tomorrow." I showed the message to Patrick, whose brow furrowed in concern. "You think Corey's planning something?" he asked. "Wouldn't put it past him," I replied, half joking, half serious. Patrick clapped me on the shoulder. "We'll be ready for whatever they try. I'll double-check all the equipment myself." As I left the gym, I couldn't shake a sense of unease. Corey was cunning, but would he really stoop to sabotage during the fight? I drove to the arena for the pre-fight weigh-in, my mind awash with possibilities. As I entered, I saw Corey and his team across the room. Our eyes met, and he smirked, oozing smug confidence. The weigh-in proceeded without incident. Both of us made weight easily. As we posed for the cameras, Corey leaned in close. "Hope you're ready for tomorrow, old man," he whispered. "It's going to be a fight you'll never forget." I met his gaze steadily. "Looking forward to it, Corey. Hope you've been practicing your fall. You'll be hitting the canvas a lot." As I turned to leave, I caught sight of Stella in the crowd. She was watching me, her expression unreadable. For a moment I felt a pang, not quite regret, but a sense of what could have been. Then I remembered her betrayal, her lies, and my feeling hardened into resolve. Back at home, I tried to relax, knowing I needed to be well rested for tomorrow, but my mind wouldn't stop racing. What if Corey really was planning something? My thoughts were interrupted by another knock at the door. I opened it to find Patrick standing there, his expression etched with concern. "Santiago, we need to talk," he said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. I closed the door behind him. "What's going on?" Patrick ran a hand through his hair. "I've got some intel." Corey might be planning something underhanded for the fight. My jaw clenched. What kind of something? Word is he's been seen with some shady characters, guys known for fixing fights. Patrick explained. "I think he might try to tamper with your gloves or maybe even bribe the referee." I paced the room, my mind racing. We can't let that happen. The fight's tomorrow. "What can we do?" Patrick nodded. "I've got a plan. We'll do a thorough check of all the equipment before the match. I'll personally oversee the wrapping of your hands and the fitting of your gloves. And I've got a trusted friend who'll be watching Corey's corner like a hawk." I gave Patrick a pat on the shoulder. "Good thinking." "Anything else yet?" Patrick replied, his face serious. "Be prepared for anything in that ring, Santiago. Corey's desperate. There's no telling what he might try." A grin spread across my face. Let him try. I'll be ready. As Patrick departed, I was filled with a surge of resolve. Corey thought he could cheat his way to victory, but he was sorely mistaken. I spent the rest of the evening fine-tuning my strategy, visualizing every potential scenario. When I finally went to bed, my mind was clear and focused. Tomorrow would be the day of reckoning. The next morning, I arrived at the arena early, the air saturated with anticipation. As I walked to the locker room, I caught a fleeting glance of Stella in the corridor. Our eyes met briefly before she quickly looked away. Inside the locker room, Patrick and the rest of my team were waiting. We meticulously went through our pre-fight routine, double-checking everything. As I warmed up, Patrick approached me. "Santiago, Corey and his team just arrived. My guy says they look nervous." I smirked. "Good, they should be." The hours passed, and finally it was time. As I walked to the ring, the roar of the crowd engulfed me. This was it. All my preparation was leading to this moment. Corey was already in the ring when I climbed in. He tried to appear confident, but I could see the fear in his eyes. The referee summoned us to the center. "All right, gentlemen, I want a clean fight. Obey my commands at all times. Touch gloves and come out fighting." We touched gloves, Corey's hand noticeably clammy. As we returned to our corners, I leaned in close. "Ready to pay for your mistakes, Corey," I whispered. His face paled, but before he could reply, the bell rang and the fight began. The crowd's roar faded into the background as Corey and I circled each other. His eyes darted around nervously, betraying his fear despite his efforts to appear bold. I kept my guard up, waiting for him to make the first move. Corey lunged with a wild right hook, which I easily sidestepped, countering with a sharp jab to his ribs. "Is that all you've got, Corey?" I taunted. No wonder Stella got bored. His face twisted in anger, and he charged at me with a flurry of punches. I blocked most, but one clipped my cheek. It stung, but I'd endured worse. As we exchanged blows, something felt off about Corey's gloves. They seemed unusually heavy. My earlier suspicions resurfaced. During a clinch, I whispered to the referee, "Check his gloves, something's not right." The referee nodded subtly and called for a break, examining Corey's gloves closely. His expression darkened. "These gloves have been tampered with," he announced. Their loaded. The crowd erupted in boos and jeers. Corey's complexion turned ashen. I didn't know," he stammered. My trainer, he must have the referee turn to me. Mister, Pfizer, as the wronged party, you have the right to call for a disqualification. Do you want to end the fight? I looked at Corey, trembling in the center of the ring, then at Stella in the front row, her face a mask of shock and embarrassment. This was my chance to end it all, to claim victory without another blow. But that wasn't what I wanted, that wasn't why I was here. No, I said firmly. I want to continue. Give him a new pair of gloves. Let's settle this fair and square. The referee appeared surprised but nodded. As you wish. We'll resume the fight after a short break to change Mr. Robinson's gloves. As we waited for the new gloves, Patrick rushed to my corner. Are you crazy? He hissed. This is your chance to end it. I shook my head. I didn't come here for an easy win, Patrick. I came here to prove a point, and I'm going to do it the right way. Patrick sighed but nodded. All right, champ. It's your call. Once Corey had his new regulation gloves, we resumed our positions. The referee gave us a final warning about clean fighting, and the bell rang again. Corey came out swinging, desperation fueling his attacks, but without his loaded gloves, his punches lacked their earlier impact. I weathered the storm, biding my time. What's wrong, Corey? I taunted between blocks. Missing your little advantage, he growled and lunged forward. Shut up and fight, old man. I seized my opportunity, unleashing a swift combination that snapped Corey's head back, followed by a severe body blow that left him gasping for air. That's for sleeping with my wife, I snarled. Corey staggered backward, his defense faltering. I pressed my advantage, striking repeatedly. Each hit was driven by months of anger and betrayal. This is for trying to ruin my business, I declared, delivering a crushing right hook. Corey's knees buckled, but he remained upright, barely. And this I announced, preparing for the final strike, is for thinking you could ever defeat me. My fist connected with his jaw in a textbook uppercut. Corey's eyes rolled back as he collapsed to the canvas, his body limp like a puppet with cut strings. The referee began the count, but it was merely procedural. Corey wasn't getting up. 10. It's over, the referee declared, waving his arms. The crowd burst into cheers. I raised my arms in victory, my chest heaving from both exertion and emotion as the medical team hurried to attend to Corey. I caught Stella's eye. She was staring at me, her face a mixture of awe and regret. I held her gaze briefly, then turned away. That chapter of my life was closing. Patrick jumped into the ring, embracing me in a bear hug. You did it, champ. You showed them all. I nodded, still catching my breath. Yeah, we did it. But it's not over yet. The ring announcer handed me the microphone. It was time to address the crowd, to put the final nail in the coffin of Corey and Stella's betrayal. As I raised the mic, I knew my next words would redefine everything. The real victory wasn't just in the ring, it lay in what came next. The arena hushed as I began to speak, thousands of eyes fixed on me, anticipating my statement. I took a deep breath, surveying the crowd before settling my gaze on Stella and Corey's corner. Ladies and gentlemen, I started, my voice steady despite the adrenaline still pulsing through my veins. What you witnessed tonight wasn't just a boxing match, it was a battle for integrity, for justice, and for truth. I paused, letting the significance of my words resonate. The crowd was spellbound, hanging on every utterance. Many of you know the backstory of this fight, how I was betrayed by the two people I trusted most in this world, my wife, Stella, and my former trainer, Corey Robinson. Boos erupted from the audience at the mention of their names. I raised a hand, calling for quiet. Their affair was bad enough, but they didn't stop there. They tried to destroy my reputation, my business, everything I've worked for my entire life. I turned, pointing directly at Corey, who was receiving medical attention. And tonight, we saw just how far they were willing to go. Loaded gloves. Corey, really, is that the extent of your confidence in your own abilities? The crowd jeered again. Corey couldn't meet my gaze. But here's the thing, I continued. Their attempts to bring me down failed. Not just tonight, but at every turn. Because when you base your life on lies and deceit, it inevitably collapses. I paused, my eyes finding Stella in the front row. She appeared small, defeated. To those of you out there who've been betrayed, who've had your trust shattered, I want you to know something: you can recover from this. You can rise above it, and you can emerge stronger on the other side. The crowd cheered, many standing in ovation. As for Corey and Stella, I concluded, my voice firm, your actions tonight and over the past months will face consequences. Legal measures will be pursued, not just for the tampered gloves, but also for the leaked photos, the business secrets, all of it. I saw Stella's face turn ashen, while Corey seemed like he wanted to vanish right into the mat. But more than that. I continued, addressing the crowd, you'll have to live with what you've done, with the awareness that when tested, you opted for dishonesty and cowardice. That's a burden you'll carry long after any legal repercussions have ended. I turned back to the audience, my tone softening. To my fans, my supporters, and everyone who stood by me through this ordeal, thank you. Your belief in me, your encouragement, it meant more than you could ever know. The cheers intensified. I raised my hand, acknowledging their support. And finally, to the boxing community and the sports world at large, let this serve as a reminder: integrity matters, fair play matters. We owe it to ourselves, to our fans, and to the sports we love to always strive for honesty and excellence. I lowered the microphone, signaling the conclusion of my speech. The arena erupted in thunderous applause and cheers. As I scanned the crowd, I saw many on their feet, some with tears in their eyes. Patrick appeared at my side, clapping me on the back. Damn, Santiago, you just became a legend, I grinned, feeling the weight of the past months lifting from my shoulders. Thanks, Patrick. Couldn't have done it without you. As we exited the ring, reporters swarmed around us, bombarding us with questions. I raised a hand, calling for order. One at a time, please, I said. I've got all night, a young reporter managed to push to the front. Mr. Pfizer, what's next for you after this? I smiled. Well, first I'm going to celebrate this victory with my team. Then I'm going to focus on growing my boxing promotion business. There are a lot of young fighters out there who deserve a fair shot, and I intend to give it to them. Another reporter chimed in, any words for Stella and Corey? I paused, considering my words carefully. I've said all I need to say to them. It's time to move forward. As we continued to field questions, I spotted Jean making her way towards us, her expression radiating pride and relief. Santiago, she said as she reached us, that was incredible. You really did it. I pulled her into a quick hug. We did it, Jean. Couldn't have made it through all this without your support, she smiled, a twinkle of mischief in her eyes. So, does this mean I get a job in your new promotion company? I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in months. You know what? Why not? Let's talk about it over dinner. I think we've all earned a celebration tonight. As we made our way out of the arena, surrounded by cheering fans and flashing cameras, I couldn't help but feel a profound sense of triumph, not just over Corey in the ring, but over all the obstacles that had been thrown my way. The road ahead was bright, filled with new opportunities and challenges, but for now I was content to revel in the victory, surrounded by the people who had stood by me through it all. The betrayal that had once threatened to undo me had instead become the catalyst for my greatest triumph. As I stepped out into the cool night air, I knew that the best was yet to come. The weeks following the fight were a whirlwind of activity. True to my word, I threw myself into expanding my boxing promotion business. The publicity from the fight had put me in a unique position, and I was determined to make the most of it. One morning, as I sat in my new office overlooking the city, there was a knock at the door. Come in, I called out. John walked in, a stack of papers in her hand. Morning, boss. Ready to go over today's agenda. I grinned, still adjusting to our new working relationship. Hit me with it, she sat down across from me. First up, we've got a meeting with that young heavyweight prospect, Marcus Johnson. His manager is eager to sign with us, I nodded. Good. What else? The lawyers called. They want to discuss the final settlement in the Stella and Corey case. I leaned back in my chair, intrigued. What are they proposing? Jean consulted her notes. Stella's agreeing to a no-contest divorce. She'll forfeit any claim to the business or your personal assets. Corey's facing a hefty fine and a suspension from boxing for the loaded gloves incident. I drummed my fingers on the desk. And the leaked photos and business secrets, they're both signing non-disclosure agreements. Any further leaks will result in severe financial penalties. I nodded slowly. All right, set up a call with the lawyers. Let's wrap this up and put it behind us. Jean made a note, then hesitated. There's one more thing, Santiago. Stella, she's requesting a meeting with you. Says she wants to apologize in person. I felt a twinge of something, not quite anger, not quite sadness, just a dull ache where my feelings for Stella used to be. Tell her no, I said firmly. Whatever she has to say, she can say it through the lawyers. That chapter of my life is closed. Jean nodded, looking relieved. Understood. I'll let her know as she turned to leave, I called out. Jean, she paused at the door. Yes, thank you for everything. I couldn't have gotten through all this without you. She smiled warmly. That's what friends are for, Santiago. Now let's go make some champions. The rest of the day flew by in a blur of meetings, phone calls, and planning sessions. By the time evening rolled around, I was exhausted but exhilarated. As I was packing up to leave, Patrick burst into my office, a huge grin on his face. Santiago, have you seen the news? I raised an eyebrow. What news? He grabbed the remote, turning on the office TV. A news anchor was mid-sentence, and in a shocking turn of events, former boxer Corey Robinson has been arrested on charges of attempted fight fixing and fraud. This comes just weeks after his highly publicized loss to Santiago Fisher. I stared at the screen, a mix of emotions washing over me. Well, I'll be damned, I murmured. Patrick clapped me on the shoulder. Looks like karma finally caught up with him. I nodded slowly. Yeah, looks like it did. As the news continued to detail Corey's fall from grace, I felt a sense of closure settling over me. You know what, Patrick, I said, grabbing my jacket. Let's go grab a drink. I think this calls for a celebration. Patrick grinned. Now you're talking. As we left the office, I took one last look at the TV screen. Corey's mugshot stared back at me, his eyes hollow and defeated, a far cry from the smug, confident man who had once betrayed me. Patrick and I made our way to a nearby bar, settling into a quiet booth in the corner. As the bartender brought our drinks, Patrick raised his glass. To justice, he said with a grin. I clinked my glass against his. And to new beginnings. We drank in comfortable silence for a moment before Patrick spoke up. So, what's next for the great Santiago Fisher? I leaned back, considering the question. You know, for the first time in a long time, I'm excited about the future. We've got some promising fighters lined up, the business is booming, and I trailed off as I saw a familiar face enter the bar. It was Jean, looking around nervously. John, I called out, waving her over. She smiled, relief washing over her face as she slid into the booth next to me. Sorry to interrupt your evening, she said, but I just heard about Corey and I. I didn't want to be alone. I put a comforting hand on her shoulder. You're not interrupting anything. You're family now. Remember? Patrick nodded in agreement. The more the merrier. What'll you have, Jean? As Jean ordered her drink, I couldn't help but reflect on how much had changed. A year ago, I thought I had it all: a loving wife, a successful career, loyal friends. Then it all came crashing down. But now, sitting here with Patrick and Jean, I realized I hadn't lost everything. I'd gained something new, something stronger. You know, I said, raising my glass again, I think we should make a toast. Patrick and Jean looked at me expectantly. To second chances, I said, to rising from the ashes, and to the family we choose. To family, they echoed, clinking their glasses with mine. As we settled into easy conversation, laughing and sharing stories, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The betrayal, the fight, the legal battles, they were all in the past now. What lay ahead was a future full of possibility, a future where I was stronger, wiser, and surrounded by people I could truly trust. The bar's TV was still showing news about Corey's arrest, but it seemed like just another part of the background noise now. I noticed Jean gazing at the TV, a range of emotions flickering across her face. Hey, I said gently, bringing her focus back to our table. You okay? She nodded, a faint smile appearing. Yeah, I am. For the first time in a long time, I really am. I completely understood what she meant. We had both endured tough times, but we had emerged stronger from them. As the evening progressed, we brainstormed plans for the future, signing new fighters, expanding the business, and even organizing a charity event to aid victims of domestic abuse. The atmosphere at our table was charged with hope and potential. When we finally left the bar, the city lights sparkled around us like stars. I inhaled the cool night air deeply, feeling truly alive. You know, I said to Patrick and Jean as we prepared to go our separate ways, I think this is the start of something great. Patrick grinned. Wouldn't expect anything less from you, champ. Jean agreed, nodding. Here's to many more victories, in and out of the ring. Watching them leave, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. The road that brought me here had been painful, but I wouldn't change it for the world. It had revealed my true character, what I was capable of, and who I could really depend on. I started walking home, my steps light and purposeful. The future was promising, and I was ready for whatever it might bring. The betrayal that had once threatened to ruin me had instead laid the foundation for my greatest triumph. As I reached my front door, I paused, looking up at the night sky. A shooting star zipped across the darkness, and I smiled. It felt like a sign of new beginnings, of limitless possibilities. I unlocked my door and stepped inside, eager to embrace whatever tomorrow might offer. The tale of Santiago Fischer, the man who rose from betrayal to become a true champion, was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. This is where our story wraps up. Share your thoughts in the comment section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.